Today we have a very special guest, Marta Cambra. I'm super excited about her talk today mainly because the title just sounds really cool, The Secret Life of Sharks. But how is everybody doing today? Before we get started, I'd like to just make a few announcements. So tomorrow, actually, we have a very special Project Aware course. It's an introduction to marine conservation. So we've had a lot of people that have wanted to get more involved with conservation from home. So we're offering this course tomorrow. We have a few spaces left. So you can sign up on the Ocean Stories schedule. And then on Thursday, we have Dora Sandoval joining us, giving her a really inspiring story about how she's getting inner city kids more involved in marine conservation and marine research with her Heroes Del Mar project. And on Friday, we have Kenzo from High on Life joining us, talking about how social media can be utilized for conservation. So be sure to register for those on the website. On Saturday, you can actually get fully nitrox certified online. So we have that available as well. And today, like I said, we have Marta joining us. How are you today, Marta?
Hello, good morning. Really good. Thank you for having me.
Good. Well, Marta is a marine scientist that's actually going to be joining us on our Cocos Island trip in July. So we're really excited to speak with you today, Marta. So I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay. And all right. Okay, so good morning, everyone that is listening to this presentation. My name is Marta Cambra, and I am a marine biologist and a master's student from the University of Costa Rica, and also a research assistant from the Marine Research Center from the university, which is called CIMAR. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Secret Life of Sharks in Costa Rica. This is a project that is led by my advisor, Mari Espinosa, from the university, and also other students, some park rangers, other researchers that are collaborating in this project. So before to deep into the topics, I would like to acknowledge all the different organizations and companies that had been supporting us. We're working close with the National System of Conservation Areas in Costa Rica. For example, we work with park rangers in most of the areas, marine protected areas where we work. And also we have the support of some dive centers and other organizations that make this work possible. So for those who don't know Costa Rica, first of all, it's a super beautiful country. You should come visit after this is all finished and everything comes back to normal. Costa Rica is a small country, as you can see in the picture. It's in Central America, but if you pay attention to the marine area that Costa Rica has, is way bigger than land. It's actually 10 times the size of the land. And we have been reported, well, this huge ocean area, it means that Costa Rica, first of all, it has a big biodiversity, really high biodiversity, because it has a lot of different kind of environments. But also it carries a lot of a huge responsibility, because imagine you have to manage the marine resources in such a huge amount of ocean. So, so far, Costa Rica has been reporting 99 species of sharks and rays. That means that that's 50% of the global diversity of sharks and rays that had been reported globally. And from those 99 species, total of 15% of species are considered threatened. So are species that if we don't do something to protect them better, they are gonna disappear. So for example, we have our lovely hammerhead shark, which is critically endangered. So that means that something is happening, right? Why do we see all these really concerned numbers about shark and ray populations all around the world? So fishing, as you probably have read or seen, overfishing is the main threat that sharks and rays are facing today. Costa Rica is not an exception. Even if Costa Rica is the green country, fishing is still a problem, and sharks still need we still need to work a lot to protect sharks properly in Costa Rica. So now we can say that the status of shark populations in Costa Rica is not properly known. It's difficult to study these species in developing countries. And also there's a big problem of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. This is not just in Costa Rica, but in general in countries in Central America. And this is mainly because there is a limited capacity to enforce the regulations that already exist in the country. So for example, to give you an example, between 2000 and 2011, Costa Rica was listed as the 6th largest exporter of sharks and meat products. And after 2011, Costa Rica dropped from the 6th to the 28th. So, and that was not because there were more proper regulations or a better management. It was because there was not more sharks to export as in those large numbers. Also, it was listed as the 8th largest exporter of shark fins, and that means that Costa Rica was receiving $8.9 million per year from countries, mainly from Asia, that were buying shark fins that were fished in Costa Rican waters. And only $1.9 million were reported. So that's telling us something as well. This problem, shark fishing, regulated fishing, is not something that just happens in Costa Rica. It happens in all the world. So here we can see this graphic from an article published in 2014, where we can see shark fishing, where shark landings, actually all convictions, started in being reported in 1950. And since then, look how much it increased the amount of landings of shark rays and chimeras until reaching a peak in 2003. At that point, those amount of sharks and rays were worth $1 billion per year. And since then, it started dropping. And again, that is not because there was a better enforcement or there was better regulations. It was because shark populations couldn't keep up with this rhythm of fishing. So populations don't have the time to recover. Sharks and rays are species that take a lot of time to grow, take a lot of time to be mature, to reproduce. And once they are able to reproduce, they have few youngs. So that means that they are not able to support high fishing pressure. So why should we care? Why should we care about sharks and what is happening to them? How this can affect us? So first of all, sharks are really cool species. That's not just because I love them. If you look back, you can see that they appeared 400 million years ago, and since then they had been evolving in order to survive. They actually survived 5 massive extinctions, and they are still today one of the main predators in our oceans. So that means that they have a really important role as top predators, which are the bigger sharks, or as mesopredators, which are a little bit smaller sharks, but both have big control on their prey, whether either because they eat them or either because their own presence in the water is affecting the behavior of the other species because they are predators, right? So I don't want to be where there is a predator. This is easily seen in this video that I wanted to show you. This is one of the videos in Cocos Island. We can see this white-tipped reef shark peacefully swimming around, and then suddenly goes like a rocket. And why? Because look, he's coming, the big mama. This is a tiger shark that was attracted by one of our cameras, by the bait that is inside of this container. So that's basically a lot of species decide where they're going to be regarding where are the predators. So if we start removing predators, the balance in the ecosystem is going to start breaking, and then we can collapse an entire ecosystem. And that's how the City Life of Shark project is born. This is actually the largest and longest shark and ray survey project in Costa Rica. And I could not talk about this project without talking about global finprint. Global finprint is actually the world's largest reef shark and ray survey. And they are working with different scientists from different countries in order to understand shark and ray populations and their actual status. So this was one of our main collaborations in the beginning to make this project happen. So what are our questions? What are we trying to answer? Usually in science, you need to have questions that you want to answer, and then you go to the field, you collect some data, and then after analyzing the data, you are able to answer those questions. So one of our main questions is, where are the sharks in Costa Rica? Where are the different species? Are they aggregating in specific sites? Are there critical habitats? So that's one of the questions. The other question is, are there habitat preferences specific for each species, right? So are these species preferring to be in coral reefs or in coastal sites or in offshore or sandy areas? So that way we can, if we identify critical habitats, by protecting these habitats, we know we're going to be protecting these species and all the other species that depend on those habitats. Another question is, what is affecting them? So why sometimes we see big aggregations of sharks, such as in this picture, and sometimes we don't see any? Is this because temperature? Is this because climate change, fishing pressure, presence of other predators, prey abundance? So that's really important to answer in order to be able to understand what affects them and how to protect them. And finally, all these questions, what we want to do at the end is answer this main question: how can we protect them? Which ones are the management strategies that we need to apply in order to better protect them? And in this work, the pictures you see here is us working at Cocos Island with the fire rangers. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this later on. So this project, how do we answer all these questions? Usually in a science project, you have survey techniques. In case of sharks and rays, the usual techniques to study them is or well fishing them, or well seeing them underwater with visual senses while diving, or you can also mark them, follow their paths. So what we're using is these baited remote underwater video stations. That's what we call BRUPs. So BRUPs are basically a stainless steel frame, as you can see in the picture, and a camera. We use GoPros, and a bait container. So the bait container is used not to feed the animals, but to attract them with the smell. So in this video that I prepared for you, it's an easy way to see how this works. So this is a video from one of our last expeditions in Cocos Island in 2017. And you can see a little bit how is this methodology and why it is so effective. So basically we are on a boat working, and then we have the camera. Camera is always facing to the bait container. And then we deploy the camera from the boat with a line, so we don't get into the water to put the cameras. And then we drop the camera at depths between 5 meters to 50, 60 meters. That's more or less the range. So we let the camera drop until it gets to the bottom, and then we wait and see what comes, right? We see the videos later on. The cameras are recording for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, until the battery dies. And then we can see the different species that are close by, wherever the smell of the bait reach at. So here, for example, we can see the video is going a little slow. So we can see how different species of sharks are being attracted by the cameras. And another really positive advantage about this system is that because we can put a lot of cameras at the same time in different sites, we are getting way more information in less time and less effort. So usually we deploy, for example, 10 cameras at the same time. We take them back, and then in the afternoon we go again and put 10 other cameras. So another advantage of this technique is that we have a permanent record of images that we can use later to answer a lot of more specific questions about species behavior or species interaction. So it's not just answer these particular questions. We can use it for more things. And also we can use it for social media to educate people to see the natural behavior of the species. And also because it doesn't require us to be a scientist to put cameras, you can work with stakeholders, for example, park rangers or local companies to help you put the cameras. And then you get people involved and motivated in the project. So we have different types of drops depending on the habitat and the site that we want to survey. For example, we have bottom drops, which are near shore, and we put these ones in those sites that are flat, and there we can study the species that are closer to the bottom. Then we have mid-water drops that we can adjust in the water column and has an anchor. So this is this triangle. The anchor, we use a buoy with holes and weights on it. And then we can study the species that are a little above the bottom. And also we use it for example, rock pinnacles or places that are more complex, are not as flat. So we make sure that these structures are not entangled when we try to retrieve them. And also finally, we have the pelagic drops, which we deploy in the offshore, far from the coast, and they don't have anchor systems, so they drift with the current. So we leave them drifting for about 2 hours, and that way we can study the species that are usually far from the coast and like to be on the open ocean. So where have we been so far? This project started actually at the end of 2016, and until today, 2020, we have recorded more than 800 videos, and we deployed the cameras both in non-protected areas and in marine protected areas, so we can see differences. So in non-protected areas in Costa Rica, you can see here ABC, Isla Loros, Bajo Rojo, Bahía Santa Elena. You can see these yellow dots in the north of Costa Rica. These are places that are close by fishing towns where fishing it is allowed. And then marine protected areas, we have Islas Murciélago or Bat Islands, Isla del Caño or Caño Island, and Isla del Coco or Coco Island. So we have here Caño, the Pacific South, Murciélago is here, the D, Pacific North, and then Coco Island, the F. And all these red dots are all the cameras that we have been deploying over the years. So I would like to talk to you a little bit more about Coco Island, because that's the place where I'm doing my master thesis for my biology master degree. And that's the place where I dedicate most of my time. So Cocos Island, let's go back to this map. Cocos Island is here. It's an oceanic island in the Eastern Tropical Pacific, and it's part of a huge underwater mountain range that is called Cocos Ridge. And it's actually the only part of this ridge that got up to the surface. Actually, Isla del Coco is connected to Galapagos Island by this underwater mountain range. And Coco Island is actually the reason why Costa Rica has this huge amount of ocean, in order to include part of this mountain range and include Cocos Island. And Cocos Island was declared a national park in June of 1978. And also a World Heritage Site in 1997 by UNESCO. And this is because, first of all, as you can see in this picture, Cocos is one of the most amazing, I can say it's the most amazing place I've ever been. The landscape is absolutely amazing. It's always green, a lot of waterfalls falling into the ocean, lots of birds. And it's actually pretty isolated, just our rangers are living there, and there's no people living there. So that's one of the reasons why there is so much marine life. When you look under the water, then that's the biggest treasure. You can see huge schools of fishes. You can see a lot of different species of sharks. You can see these big predators like tiger sharks, pretty common to see. And then that's one of the only places where you can see these huge aggregations of hammerhead sharks. This is actually less and less common because we are overfishing them, but this still happens. And this is definitely a unique place in the earth that is worth to protect. So Coco Island, it's been actually my my biggest teacher. This is me in 2014. That was my first time that I went to Coco Island. And I went as a volunteer to help park rangers in different conservation projects. And since that first experience, I kept going back year after year, helping them in different reef survey projects, tourism projects, side dives projects. And actually, it was until 2017 then they were really worried about not having a protocol to study shark and ray populations. So we started thinking, how can we study them in an effective way and something that is affordable for the national park? So we started researching this camera system, the Drops, and then that's when we contacted the one that is now my advisor, Mario Espinosa, and he was ready with the Secret Life of Sharks, ready to start working in Costa Rica. He had the equipment, so that's how we created a cooperation between the national park and the university in order to make this project a long-term project. Without the collaboration of the park rangers and the resources of the national park, we could not be doing this project because it's really expensive to go to Cocos. So we are doing this twice a year with them, and that's what it makes this a really valuable project that we hope that is gonna last long-term. Coco Island has given me not just amazing and really happy experiences, but also really hard to see experiences. This was the second year I was at the island, and we were going with the park rangers towards dive sites in order to do a survey. And we got a call from one of the dive guides saying that, hey, we were diving in Nacion, one of the dive sites, and we saw a shark dead on a line. So we went there, and from the boat, we started pulling the line. And then we started pulling shark after shark. Some of them were dead, some of them were alive. And that was the first time I saw with my eyes that shark illegal fishing was real. That was not just numbers, that was real thing happening. And that gave me the strength and the motivation to keep coming back to this place and keep working towards the shark conservation. So illegal fishing is something that happens in Cocos Island, happens in most of the marine protected areas in Costa Rica. And as you can see in this map, this red dotted line is the limits of the protected area, 22 square kilometers. And you can see the gray dots are fishing lines that were found between 2012 and 2014. So usually what happens here is that the fishermen go to the southwest of the Cocos Island, like here, and they drop the lines, and usually the currents go towards southwest to northeast. So they drop the lines outside the protected area, they go all the way around and wait for the lines on the other side. So once the island crosses the whole island, they pick up the lines and pick up everything that is attached on it. So this was pretty common. Now it's less common, illegal fishing in Cocos, because in 2017 they got the installation of a radar that has 20 miles coverage. So that puts a lot of the fishermen away from the protected waters because they can be detected by the IIS track system. But we all know some of them know how to avoid this, right? But definitely the radar is helping to put illegal fishing in lower numbers. Cocos Island is not the 22 kilometers around. It's also, it's bigger, has been increased since 2011 that this additional protected area was created. It's called Montes Submarinos. And it was made to protect these Simons here in the green area, and also this other no-take buffer zone in the north of the island. The rest, the yellow area, is restricted to long lines. So there's not industrial fishing, no trawling, no petroleum extraction, etc. So that means that this is a huge area to protect. We're talking about 9,640 square kilometers. So that means that it's right now, with the resources they have, it's really hard to make sure that this regulation is actually being applied. So if we take a bigger look of what is going on in the Eastern Tropical Pacific. This is the red lines are the delimitation of Cocos Island and the Gemelas management area, and we can see the blue dots are all the vessel operations around. So we're not just talking about illegal fishing, we're talking about legal fishing that is happening all around Cocos Island, Galapagos Island, Marpelo Island. All this Eastern Tropical Pacific region has a lot of impact from fishing activities. So how are we going to protect species that are migratory, that go from one area to another area, if there is so many vessels fishing them outside the protected areas, right? That's one of the questions. So that's probably one of the reasons, or the main reason, of why elasmoran community is shifting in Cocos Island. So this is the only data we have about population trends at Cocos from 1991 to 2013, thanks to the data collected by dive guides from the Under Sea Hunter group. There was these 2 papers published about the trends of shark and ray populations, where we can see that 8 species went down in really serious numbers, and 4 species start increasing, particularly the tiger shark. So why is this happening? How are the species now? That's something that we cannot answer because there is not enough data. Even if Cocos Island is one of the most important places in shark conservation, there is not a lot of long-term standardized projects going on. So basically, the main question we want to answer with the specific work that we're doing at Cocos is what it is the actual status of shark and ray populations at Cocos Island and what it is affecting them. So as you can see in the pictures, park rangers are super involved in the work, and every time we go there, they are the ones helping us and leading the project. So what we've done so far, specifically in Cocos, we have deployed 264 drops. That means 250 hours. We cover 5 different kind of habitats, and we put the cameras between 3 to 50 meter depths, between 1 to 2 hours. Okay, so all these little dots, the orange ones are dry season, and the blue ones are rainy season. This that you can hear in my background is not any cars or sirens, are little animals in the jungle. Okay, so after we have collected all these videos, we are talking about 800 videos in total. We have to analyze them, and that's the hard part, right? We have to sit down in the lab in the university and start analyzing all these videos. Thanks God we have the help of a lot of students that are helping them to analyze the videos, and we have to identify all the species that we see in the videos. And in terms of counting sharks, what we do is that we only count the abundance of sharks when we see the individuals in the same frame. So for example, here we can see 1 shark, so we know there was 1 shark. If this shark goes away and goes again in front of the camera, that doesn't mean that we have 2 sharks. We still have 1 shark. We are only going to count 2 sharks if we see 2 sharks together, or 3 or 4 or 5. So that's called the relative abundance in the drops studies. And that's what we consider for counting shark abundance. So that's pretty, actually a pretty conservative estimate, because probably if we see 5 sharks, there is a couple more in the back that we cannot see. So that's the way that we make sure we're not over counting them. So, so far we have analyzed 50% of the videos, more or less 400 and something videos, and we could extract some information from that analysis. That's what I'm gonna briefly explain you. So from all these video analysis, which kind of information can we take so far? So we have detected 29 species in total. This is actually the shark study in Costa Rica that has detected more species, and 11 of these species are sharks and 18 are rays. This is not just in Cocos Island, but this is in all the project in all Costa Rica. From these 29 species, this represents the 31% of reported species in Costa Rica. So that means that the drops are an effective technique that is allowing us to report a big amount of the sharks that we know that exist in Costa Rican waters. Actually, this percentage would increase if we don't consider the species that are known to live in really deep waters, on really offshore open ocean, that we are not going to put our cameras there. And if we remove those species, then we have been reported 50% of the species known to occur in Costa Rican waters. And from these 29 species, 66% are threatened. So that means that, first of all, we have a big amount of species that need protection. And second, that means that drops are letting us study species that need our help. So what else have we detected with these results? So we also compare between protected areas and fishing areas. And we saw that in marine protected areas, we have more diversity and more abundance of top predators, which are these big animals, usually more than 3 meters long. And in fishing areas, we almost don't have, we actually didn't report any top predator, but we have more abundance of mesopredators. Mesopredators are smaller predators that don't get to 3 meters, they're usually like 1 meter. And these mesopredators start increasing in the absence of top predators because no one is eating them, so their populations start growing and growing, and that starts putting the ecosystem not in balance. So when we look into marine protected areas, you remember that we have Cocos Island in the Pacific Ocean, we had Bat Islands up into the north, and we had Caño Island back into the south. So then we can see the differences of top predators, right? So we can see that Cocos Island has 80% of the species detected are top predators, and Murciélago or Bat Islands have 12%, and Caño Island has 3%. So that means there's something that is differentiating Coco Island from the other marine protected areas that are closer to shore. And mainly this is isolation. So Cocos Island is isolated from a lot of other human impacts, contamination, tourism, habitat degradation, fishing. Also, Coco Island has a better enforcement. So even if it's the most isolated area, it's the area that has more resources, the marine protected area with more resources in Costa Rica to enforce regulations. Sadly, in most of the marine protected areas in Costa Rica, park rangers live in poor conditions. They don't have enough resources, and illegal fishing is it happens. And also size. So sharks, in order to protect sharks in an effective way, we need big areas that are considering their big movements. So Coco Island has also a bigger area than the rest. So that can explain those differences. So at the end, what this all means. So basically, we've seen that drops used for the same that's the first time that drops have been used in Costa Rica, and we discovered that it can provide a really valuable information to detect population changes, and we can understand why are these changes happening, are because of fishing pressure, the reef degradation, climate change. To answer this specific question, we will need data of a longer time. We can identify critical habitats, we can better understand the ecological role of sharks, and we can understand better if marine protected areas are being effective or not. And also, just to finish with, I wanted to also explain to you that we are working towards this national protocol, which is trying to standardize survey technique with drops to study pelagic and predator species in marine protected areas in Costa Rica. We have actually, it's pretty much done, and we just need to do the field work and train the park rangers. So the idea is that the park rangers are the ones applying these cameras and then giving the information to us or to other universities or other entities in order to help them to analyze the data. And that's going to create a big change towards shark conservation in the country. So that's basically it. We have a lot of more information to share, but I wanted to keep it short and interesting. Hopefully it is interesting. So thank you so much on behalf of the Circular Life of Shark team, and not just from us, but also from all the other collaborators, Power Rangers, assistants from CIMAR that have been helping us. And if you want to know more and you want to better understand what we're doing, if you want to collaborate with us, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And please, you can ask us any other questions you might have about what we're doing. Thank you so much. Hopefully someone is listening.
Cool, awesome. Thank you so much for that, Marta. That was really, really, really informative. It's really cool to see the comparison between the different islands. Like, that's amazing. Like the biodiversity at Cocos Islands compared to the other islands. Like,
And we still have so much work to do because there's so many other protected areas or fishing areas. So our work is to keep increasing our area so we can better understand patterns.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can't imagine. It's such a huge area. So we have a lot of questions coming in. So I'll just read you a few of these. So one of the first questions that we have is coming from Corey. He's asking, which materials do you use to build the brubs or the baited remote underwater videos?
So we use a stainless steel. So that's the only material that we're gonna make sure it's not gonna be affected by the salt. So that's been working really good. We built it years ago and it's still working perfectly.
Okay, cool. All right, Ro asks, thank you for this amazing talk. What do you think about baiting or chumming to attract sharks so you can see them on your dives? Do you think that is okay, or do you think that that alters their behavior?
So I think that needs a little bit of research to answer this question. I think it depends on the species, and it depends mainly on how often are you going there and how much food are you giving them, right? Because if you give them all the food they need to survive, that means that you're changing their habitat behavior, their feeding behavior, and they're probably not gonna eat the prey that they should eat, and that can affect the ecosystem. But if you are being careful about how many times are you going, or which kind of food are you giving them, then you can do it in a respectful way. And if you put in balance, right, that might affect them a little bit, not too much, but you are creating a lot of job opportunities, and you are moving fishing income from ecotourism income that has a lot of value. So I think it's really important that the companies that do that know what they're doing and do it in a responsible way.
Yeah, we've had this question come up a lot in our Shark Talks, and I think it's super important, you know, who you choose as the operator and how they operate and how informed they are, how eco-conscious they are with the sharks. You know, totally.
I would say it's good to have a scientist or researcher or a previous study to see what is happening.
Yeah, definitely. There has been some research studies done, but there definitely needs to be a lot more in different areas as well. So, cool. So Anonymous is asking, what bait do you use in the brubs, and do currents and conditions affect how many individuals are attracted to the baited remote underwater video?
Mm-hmm. So we use the Scombra japanicus, which is a kind of a sardine, because it's really oily. You want really oily fishes that you can spread the smell a lot. And yeah, definitely this is one of the limitations of brubs, which is we don't know how far is the smell of our bait going. So we don't know the area that we are surveying. So that's why we cannot get density numbers. We just can get abundance numbers. So yeah, we don't know, depending on the currents, depending on the species smell detection, that can affect what you are getting.
Yeah, cool, very interesting. All right, so Faye asks, great talk, thank you very much. Is there potential connection between the fishing and the issues that were encountered with divers and the tiger shark in Cocos, given the lines that can drift that way?
I would say probably not. Like fishing occurs in the island, but has been occurring since so long and was even more common before. And we hadn't had any shark accident until that few years ago when that happened. So we don't know why that exactly happened, but we might think it seems to be that is one individual that is acting in an aggressive way. So it seems to be that is one individual that has this tendency. So maybe because it had a specific background, something happened to that specific shark, or we don't really know why. But I don't think that fishing has a direct relation, because if you think about it, they eat prey all the time. That's their natural behavior. They are in contact with prey, with blood continuously. So the fact that there's fishing, I don't see how that can be related to human presence and what that could make a shark want to bite a person.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good answer. All right. So Sue asked, do you know which species of shark migrate between the marine protected areas? And are there any species that do not migrate?
Mm-hmm. So the species that has more information about migrations, I think it's the hammerhead shark that has been tagged in Galapagos, has been tagged in Malpelo, and we have proof that they migrate from areas and they also go to coastal areas. Another species is the Galapagos shark that was recorded, I think it was in the Mexican waters, Clipperton, I think, or Revillagigedo, and migrated all the way to Galapagos. Tiger sharks are also known to migrate, but it seems that they are pretty comfortable in the areas in the Asian tropical Pacific. So it seems they are resident in Cocos and in Galapagos, for example. And other species that don't migrate as much, for example, the white-tip reef shark stays pretty much in the island, such as the marble ray, this ray with a lot of dots. Another species that migrates is the silky shark, for example. So yeah, there is a little bit of both depending on the natural behavior of the species. If they need to do, if they have everything they need to survive in one place, they are going to be there. But if they, for example, as the hammerheads, if they need to get clean in islands and they need to give birth to coastal areas, that's what makes them moving, and that actually increases their risk to be fished because they're getting away from protected areas.
Right. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So Houston says Central America is notorious for violence against conservationists. Are you guys, the more data that you collect that will inform conservation legislation, are you facing any aggressive resistance from local fishermen or more nefarious groups?
We are particularly not being threatened or had problems by fishermen, and I think it's because we are mainly on the side of science so far. So we are collecting data and explaining people what is going on, but we are not activists, to say it in some way. So, but I know activists in Costa Rica are getting threats from fishermen, and actually fishermen in Costa Rica is a big, strong community. They have a lot of power, and they have a lot of power to convince the government to change regulations. So that's definitely a big battle.
Good to know. Good to know. Alejandro says no questions, just really amazed by your contribution. So congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Megan says, are you seeing any other issues with the sharks in the Cocos that are impacting the population numbers? You did mention the fishing, but are you seeing any other direct impacts such as disease?
Personally, I haven't seen disease, and that's something that I haven't seen as a problem in Cocos. Sharks seem pretty healthy in that way. And I think it's because they are not receiving impacts, for example, from rivers or pollutants that usually occur in coastal areas. So in Cocos Islands, sharks are pretty healthy. It's just that the population numbers are going down. That's mainly the thing.
Okay, I think she's asking like, is there any other things besides fishing and hunting them that's impacting their population numbers?
We started trying to see if tourism could be a source of impact, but Cocos Island is actually really restrict about how many people get and what are they doing. There's a control. So I think it's 60 people per day that are allowed in the island. So that's a really slow number. So we didn't concluded that study, but I have been like diving a lot with tourism and checking how they dive, which kind of impact they do. And it seems to me that it's pretty low, and especially if the dive masters also try to aware them from not touching corals and not getting too close to sharks. So I don't think tourism is impacting them. So I would say fishing is the main source of impact.
Cool. Good to know. Yeah, I know it's highly regulated there, and so it's very well protected. It's also really hard to get out there, so it's another barrier to entry for Cocos besides the cost.
Yeah.
So Victoria asks, will the National Survey Protocol for Pelagic and Predator Species, will it be integrated into all the national parks management of Costa Rica?
So that's the ideal dream, right? So that's when we created the protocol, that's the perfect idea. Each marine protected area have their own cameras and their own structures. They have enough personnel to apply it. They have the time to do it. And they have, importantly, the collaborations with universities or other institutions to analyze the videos and the data, right? Right now, the only area that is able to do that is Cocos Island because of the amount of personnel and resources that they have. We were thinking about a way to start is to have one set of equipment and move it around the different areas in order to take the information. But that's definitely, we're gonna need a little bit more of resources to make that happen, and also to make sure that there is enough people at the island. So a lot of islands right now, a lot of marine protected areas now have between 1 to 3 or 4 park rangers, and they have to do other things. So that makes it a little complicated. But we're working there. We're working to find a better strategy to make that happen.
Yeah.
That's actually, we have been doing this with FICO, which is the Fundación Amigos Isla del Coco, and that they are providing all the resources to make that happen.
Wow, it's amazing. It's really cool. All right, so Jose says, great talk, Marta. Has the numbers for resident shark species at Cocos increased following the expansion of the protected area and the radar installation? And why have some non-resident species increased and others have not?
So the radar was installed 2017, and we don't have long-term data about shark species since 2013, which was the last paper published. So we hope to be able, now we have 4 years of data. In order to see population trends, you need, we would say at least 5 and then hopefully 10 years. Obviously, we wouldn't want to wait as much because then all the sharks would die. But we haven't analyzed so far population trends with our information. So I cannot say if there is a direct relation between radar installation and resident species. But I would say yes, species that move less, if there is less illegal fishing, they're gonna be probably better protected. However, it's not only that can affect them. For example, if you have more bigger predators that can eat these resident, usually smaller predators, then that can also affect them. So that's why you need a little bit of data from everything, from fishing, from bigger predators, to be able to connect all the dots and to answer this question.
Yeah, just like we need more long-term data. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So Tom says, it sounds like the radar did a great job of deterring illegal fishing. What other successful methods have been tested across the globe that are available, and are these cost effective?
In order to survey or to protect sharks?
It says that like I think he's referring to illegal fishing. So like he's saying that the radar did a great job of deterring illegal fishing with the radar. So or he's saying now to protect sharks. Sorry, okay. Just posted in the chat. Thanks, okay. Tom.
So yeah, I think so. Basically, you want to have eyes out there, right? You want to make sure you have enough eyes to see what's happening and to enforce regulations. So radar can be an option, but also, for example, in some places you can use the awareness of tourism as people that are able to also make sure there is no fishermen around the dive sites. And also, this is something that I believe is really important, is working directly with the fishermen communities. So maybe the fishermen that are the ones that fish there find a way of giving them alternatives incomes, so they don't have to fish the sharks, and they can be actually the ones protecting the area from other fishermen from outside trying to come, right? So this is an example, for example, in where you are guys in Cabo Pulmo, that's a great example of how a local community changed the pattern from fishing towards ecotourism.
Yeah, we're doing that a lot with the fishermen in Mag Bay as well. Like the sport fishermen up there, changing them to ecotourism. Take like a lot of them are earning a better income and have a better quality of life in tourism.
Exactly.
With fishing.
And one more thing I would add is that also enforce the law, right? So here, one common problem in Costa Rica is that there is the law, but most of the times when a fisherman boat was caught in Cocos Island, the government would not do anything about it. And then the other fishermen know, so they are not afraid of being punished. So that's something that has been trying to change, but that's really important that the government find a way to really enforce the law.
Just find a way to hold them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So Christine asks, have you noticed a difference in your research since this whole pandemic has happened? I feel the humans on this planet are on hold, which I feel is a good thing for the ocean and land animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had to go to Cocos in March, and my trip was canceled. And since then, I've been here in my house. So we could not take. We haven't been able to take data since all this happened. I do have the idea to try to do some survey before all the tourism come back, so to try to see some differences, but we haven't had the opportunity yet.
Cool, very cool. Is there any program, Diego asks, is there any program or initiative between countries, not just Costa Rica, to protect this big area? So it's kind of other nations involved?
Yeah, that's a really important question, because when you're talking about migratory species, you need to do international agreements between countries in order to protect them, right? So in this area, there is actually two initiatives that are related. There is the Marine Corridor of Marine Protected Areas of the Eastern Tropical Pacific, which includes all these Galapagos, Cocos, Mapelo, Gorgona. And this is basically how the park rangers from the different areas are connected and are trying to apply similar measurements and share information. And also we have the Migramar group, which is a group of scientists from different countries, which are using satellite telemetry and acoustic telemetry to detect shark movements. So for example, if I am a scientist in Costa Rica and I have a lot of receivers here, but I don't know when my shark goes to Galapagos, I don't have receivers there. So the scientists from Galapagos share the data, so that way you can understand all the movements. So that's a really good initiative in the region as well.
Cool. So we have a Ronan. He's asking for his son. He says that they live on the Osa Peninsula and volunteer with the Reserva Playa Tortuga, releasing sea turtles. He says that he's 10 years old and he would like to be more involved with marine protection. His dream to dive with a whale shark off Isla del Cano. What more can I do to get involved locally? Am I too young to learn how to dive? And his mom can take him to dive school in Dominico. And he says, a really great presentation.
Awesome. Yeah, so for kids, I think education is the main tool to start getting involved with knowledge, right? So if you are interested about sharks, start finding the way to know more about them. Maybe you can go to talk to people in your area that are doing something about sharks, for example, and see what can you do with them. You can contact us. We are in the university, but for example, I live in this area in the Pacific South of Costa Rica, close by Dominical, and we also run a dive center operation. So if I don't know, does he has the age to dive or not?
10 years.
10 years. Okay, almost there.
So
Yes, diving is definitely an eye opener. So once you start diving, you get more and more in love with conservation. And I think one of the most vital and important things that you can do is to talk to people about it, because it seems that you cannot do a big change, but just by talking to people, explaining them how cool are sharks, why it is important to protect them. A lot of people don't know that. So just by talking, and then these people can start talking, everyone is going to have the same mindset about protecting the ocean, right?
Yeah.
And if you grow up and you want to get more and more involved, you can become a biologist and start getting your hands on.
I agree. So we're getting low on time, but I have a few more questions. So if you don't mind, Marta, we'll just
I don't mind at all.
more. So we have one question that's really interesting. And have you encountered many pregnant sharks and rays or juveniles? Do you know if they give birth in that area?
So yeah, we've seen pregnant. I guess he's talking about Cocos Island.
Yes.
Yeah. So in Cocos, we've seen pregnant tigers. We've seen really interesting baby hammerheads. So this is something that is not common to see, because hammerheads are supposed to give birth in the coastal areas near coast. So we saw a group of 3-4 baby hammerheads in really murky waters in a bay, in Waker Bay in Cocos. So that also is interesting, because it might be happening that for some reason some females are giving birth there, but it's definitely not common. And then, for example, we also see a lot of juveniles, silver-tip sharks. Silver-tips is an interesting story, because they used to be really common in a cleaning station, huge silver-tip sharks going around to get clean, and then they disappeared. And we don't know if that's because of fishing or because of the tiger shark. But now we see a lot of juveniles, so like less than 1 meter sharks, silver tips, and we don't see the adults. So we still don't know exactly what is happening with these ones, but definitely all this information is giving us some clues to understand.
Yeah, so it could be some sort of nursery or something, possibly.
Yeah, it could be, or maybe they are able to swim from other areas on that size, or maybe the adults are giving birth far and the baby ones come. We still don't know.
It's really cool. Really cool. Awesome. All right. From shark to shark. So Joe asked, from shark to shark, how long does it take for them to fully grow? And from what distance can sharks detect or sense prey in the water?
So how long it takes them to grow, to be mature, I guess?
Yeah, to become a fully grown adult.
That depends a little bit on the species. Usually the range is like between 7 to 10 years. For example, hammerheads take 8 years to be able to reproduce. And that also depends between males and females. But in general, it's a long years, right? If you compare it with fishes that take way, like bone fishes, take way less, and they have hundreds of eggs. That's not what happens with sharks, right? And then how far they can detect, that we don't really know, because they use different senses to detect their prey. So they not only use the smell, but they use the sound, they see, and then they have this ampulla Lorenzini to detect different pressure on the water and also electromagnetic field. So there is no study that tells you how far the species are able to detect the bait that we're using, from what my knowledge.
Yeah, I've read a lot of stuff online, and it's kind of conflicting results. A lot of people think that, they can smell it from a mile away, and then other people think that it's, it depends on the species. But yeah, it's a lot of conflicting results. I don't think there's a conclusive study on it.
However, what we see from our cameras, for example, if the sharks would be able to smell, I don't know, from 1,000 miles away, we would have all the sharks all the time, the same sharks in the cameras, and that's not what happened. In this place, we have some species and some sharks, and 500 meters away, we have other sharks and other species. So that's telling us that probably they are not following as long the smell of the prey.
Yeah, cool. So Theo asked, do you think SINAC in Costa Rica will adopt your protocols to help establish new marine protected areas? Or SINAC, S-I-N.
Yeah, SINAC is the National System of Conservation Areas. Definitely, it can be used for that. So this protocol is not only made for marine protected areas, it's intended to be used for other non-protected areas. So if we start deploying these cameras in non-protected areas, and we see and we find critical spots that have to be protected, that's definitely data that can be used for that. But I think so far the main objective is to apply it inside the marine protected areas, and in order to be able to better know what is happening there. SINAC is completely open about the idea of using this protocol because we have been working with them, we have presented them this protocol. The only concern is how we maintain this in the long term and how we make sure that the data analysis is done continuously.
Cool. And the last question, so Jose asked, do you also put satellite tags on sharks at Cocos?
No, we haven't been doing that. There is other research teams that do that. For example, Misión Tiburón or Things Attached at Cocos use this satellite. We haven't been using that because that's not the answer that we're trying to answer now, and we need to focus our effort towards something for now. But this is definitely important to combine survey techniques in order to have a bigger picture, right? Because satellite data can tell us not only in aggregations and distribution in one side, but also if this species is going far away. So to get a bigger picture, it's good to combine both, and that's why cooperation between scientists and between organizations is so important.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, just one last question here, and then if you guys have other questions that we didn't get to, you can send them to Marta. Or you can email us or post them on our social media, and we'll tag Marta in it, and we'll make sure that all of your questions get answered.
I have time. For me, no worries.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. So Tom asks, if it is cleaning alone that causes sharks to migrate, and if so, if promoting the growth of cleaning stations in their local areas, if it's possible to prevent them from migrating so much.
So he means if cleaning station is the reason why sharks are migrating?
Yeah, he's trying to see if it's possible to prevent sharks from migrating so much by making better cleaning stations. Or
yeah, like cleaning stations are definitely important to keep sharks healthy because these little fishes clean them from bacteria. So that's one of the reasons why they are getting into different oceanic island or other cleaning stations that may be closer to the coast to get clean. But there are other necessities that are not supplied by cleaning stations. For example, giving birth or reproduction. Sometimes for example, hammerheads are thought to be to reproduce in deep waters. So all these different requirements for their survival makes them migrating. I don't think so. There is a way to change their migrating patterns. What we have to see is that where are they migrating and how can we protect their travel from here to there, right?
Right. Cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Marta. We cannot wait to see you in July in Cocos.
Yes, hopefully that's going to happen.
Yeah, and like I said, guys, if you have more questions for Marta, just direct them to our social media page or to Marta's, and we'll get those answered for you. And we have a lot of people thanking you for your awesome presentation. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for that awesome presentation. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.